What makes church different than a social club or an organization? So what does it mean to have the church be different? What does it mean to be a member of God's living body here on earth? It means that we show up with our whole selves. And it means it's different than just supporting the social clubs, the organizations we're part of. It means showing up in a different way and using different words and thinking of this not just as being part of something that I support just because to keep the lights on, but instead thinking this is part of my sacrifice that I do as a sacrifice of praise. And that's different than we don't use those words in other places in our lives. It might even make us a little bit uncomfortable to talk about what does it mean to sacrifice. Mark Allen Powell in his book talks about this and talks about thinking about how we give to the church and talking today about financial giving as well as our other ways of showing up for the church. Talks about it in two ways. Those two ways are offerings. Offerings might be those automatic ways, the sustainer, the automatic giving that we give to support, to keep the lights on, to pay the salaries, to make sure that we have heat and air conditioning, thankfully, in the winter and the summer. It means that we help be a member of this church just to help pay the bills, just like we support other things. There's also a thought of sacrifice. Sacrifice means going above and beyond in a way that recognizes the amazing gift that we've been given. It is both a duty and a delight. And that duty comes because with the amazing gifts we've been given, we can't help but say thank you. It's an overwhelming love of God every day. And we have to think about what it means to respond to that and say thank you. So when we think about a difference between offerings and sacrifice, I think it's helpful to step out of church and potentially think about some different ways. And I'm going to use 3 different analogies to talk about that. The first is when I go to the zoo. We pay every year to be members of the zoo, but pretty routinely, and so we actually think every time we go to the zoo, wow, this is a really great deal. I get to be a member of the zoo and I get to show my card and get in. There's no membership card here at church, and that's a good thing. But there's also usually a plexiglass thing there that I get to put money in, and they say we're raising money for a new polar bear or to make sure the wolves have food or whatever. Perhaps most of us don't put enough to sacrifice in that box, but there's giving to support and giving above and beyond. The other thing is I invite you to think about going out to dinner. You have a nice dinner, and you have an exceptional experience with that waiter. And you pay for your meal, and now the time comes for you to support with a tip. I dare say that you will remember not how much you paid, but you'll remember how much you tipped and potentially walk away feeling really well if you give just a little extra to that person who made your experience special. And I think sometimes at church we think just about giving the tip instead of helping pay for the entree as well. I think the third thing as we think about sacrifice is how we think about living with our whole selves in this community. Do we make choices here that mean I come to church not just when it's convenient, but instead of something else? Does it mean that we put this first? And potentially that I put this first as well in my financial life too. And so as we think about this idea of giving and how do we do this, it can be uncomfortable to think about. And yet I also encourage you to think about where else do you see this in your life, and places are in your face and really open about that. Right? There's billboards about give to this and give to that. Radio stations do pledge weeks. And while we're not going to do that every week, I think that we should think about how we seek to be in community together, how we raise money, how we, yes, support the ongoing needs of this church to keep the lights on, as we've talked about, but also how we might be called to be members of a community that sacrifices for one another and with another, with one another, so that the least among these can be supported as well. The church is different because it's not a club. It's the living body of Christ in this world. We live in a very, very transactional world, a world that seeks to say, I give you something and you give me something, where we derive value from what we give and get. It's not church. Church is relational. As we seek to understand what it means to be in relationship with one another in this community and respond to the lavish, overwhelming gifts of God, I think it might mean that we go beyond just support. We go beyond just keeping the lights on and think what it might mean to actually sacrifice.